This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey Darklings, Kaylin here. We know our generation has a surplus of pretty darkness in common, and if there's one thing unpacking our upbringing has taught us, it's just how essential therapy is for shining a flashlight on the darkness in our own lives. I don't know where I'd be without mine. I believe every human can benefit from the perspective of a licensed therapist. Whether you're familiar with your own inner workings or you're just looking for a listening ear, you can give BetterHelp online therapy a try by going to betterhelp.com/prettydark and receive 10% off your first month. I get that online therapy can be tricky, but I've been seeing my therapist online since 2020, and I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely worth it. Getting started is always the hardest part, and BetterHelp makes that easy. You can begin right from your phone or computer in whatever way makes you most comfortable, via good old-fashioned phone calls, video chats, or even messaging, if that's more your style. We enjoy this frightful nostalgia and learning about how it all connects, but Darklings know we're also passionate about healing and growing from what we learn. If you dare to do the same, head to betterhelp.com/prettydark. There you can answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people like us. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time, so you're sure to find the right connection. Millennials are ditching the stigma and owning our mental health. And with BetterHelp, you can build a relationship with a professional all from the comfort of your own home, just how we like it. Visit betterhelp.com/prettydark or choose That's Pretty Dark podcast during sign up and enjoy 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/prettydark.
You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
The podcast where we talk about all the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
Man, the universe is back on its bullshit, is it not?
Clearly. It's back on something.
We were like we were just toying with the idea of not recording this evening, and then the universe had to do it to us. The universe was like, y'all are idiots. Tonight is a full moon, you morons.
And your episode is called The Tale of the Full Moon, so you pretty much don't have a choice.
Have you guys ever done a podcast before? Ever?
Well, see,
the universe can be a dick sometimes. He was really harsh.
It can. I didn't plan it like this.
Or she. They.
They
were harsh.
I didn't plan it like this, but I first watched this episode on a full moon, the last full moon.
No way.
Had no idea.
Pink moon.
I watched on the pink moon, and we're recording on the flower moon. Which is insane.
I love that.
But yeah, we were teetering back and forth today because we've never really been...
The pink gladioles.
The gladioles. We've never really been in a situation like this where we still have an episode in edit.
Yeah.
And multiple in the hopper to be edited, and we're recording at the same time.
We've been doing this for 3.5 years. It's been 3.5 years.
Almost 4.
Since we've done this.
Really, technically, we've been recording for over 4 years because we started recording in May of 2021.
But since we've known what we're doing, this is the first time we've ever had overlap in episodes. So
yeah, in good ways and bad ways, because like some of them are delayed, but then some of them are very, very early. So it's a weird and wacky timeline we're living on right now, Darklings, and we really hope you'll just join us.
Well, you're welcome for that
timeline.
Little insight into our behind the scenes of this little show of ours. That's Pretty Dark. I'm one of your hosts, Christian,
and I'm the other one, Caitlin.
And are we werewolves this evening?
Yeah, we're gonna be werewolves today.
We are your werewolf hosts. This full moon's night, this flower moon's yield.
There's so much to say. There's so much to discuss. If you're out there, you're a Darkling, and you're a fan of Are You Afraid of the Dark, you might be wondering to yourself, what more could they possibly even tell us about werewolves? That's what I was asking.
I feel like we've covered
werewolves. We're going to find out together.
101 times.
Quite a
Apparently,
few.
It's only been a couple.
Quite a few. And
it feels
blessedly,
like a lot.
Amazingly, and serendipitously, there is still plenty more to say.
There's always more to say. Always more bullshit. There's always more lies to tell ourselves just to get by.
It's true.
Get by with a little lie to myself.
That's both of our mottos here, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The Tale of the Full Moon is the 9th episode of the 2nd season of Are You Afraid of the Dark and was written and directed by Ron Oliver, who we know from quite a few of our favorites, as Christian just told us last time, including Phantom Cab, Laughin' in the Dark, Dark Music, and Frozen Ghost.
Yeah.
It supposedly aired on my first birthday, August 21st, 1993.
Oh, nice. It's like it was made for you.
Feels that way sometimes.
It's like a little birthday gift.
Although we've discussed Ron before, it's going to be fun referencing him today and reminding you of his place in the Are You Afraid of the Dark universe. His campy, theatrical fingerprints are truly a defining feature of the series, and perhaps never more so than this episode.
Yeah, dude. Heavy-handed camp.
I found an interview with Ron cooked up by the Gaily Dreadful blog, a site we've referenced before, which I'll be using, as well as an interview with some of the actors from Dread Central.
Wonderful.
So our summary, courtesy of IMDb, an aspiring pet detective investigates his mother's new boyfriend, who he suspects is a werewolf.
Short and sweet.
Just says it all.
Yeah, it does.
I feel that Ron Oliver himself better summarized the episode in one of his quotes from the Gaily Dreadful blog. He said that he recalled it being worrisome to the network in some circles as being a bit too John Waters meets David Lynch.
Oh, okay.
And I guess I can see that maybe better describes what we're working with here today.
John Waters. Yeah, that fits. I mean, that vibe fits. Honestly, I have a lot of questions about the actual vibe of this episode and like how it would be categorized. So I hope you have some thoughts because I do. Couldn't quite,
as did Ron,
figure it out.
And clearly, as we've said over and over, and the word camp will probably cease to have meaning to you Darklings as you're listening today, because that's really the only way to describe a lot of the things you're going to see. Mm-hmm. That's where we live today. Camp horror, campfires. And this campfire intro is one of the few times that we get to see any sort of Midnight Society pomp and circumstance, making it a favorite of mine as a wannabe member of the Midnight Society. We open on the kids discussing Frank's Midnight Society induction anniversary.
It was a year ago tonight that David brought Frank into our circle so he could tell the tale that made him a member of the Midnight Society.
The tale of the Phantom Cab.
Vink's the name. Dr. Vink. With a v.
It's all very meta because I'm not used to hearing these kids talking about those characters outside of their specific story episodes.
It is rare, yeah.
The Are You Afraid of the Dark wiki claims that this is one of only 2 times that they even reference a previous story.
I was going to say.
But it didn't tell me the other time.
Oh, lame.
So we'll have to wait and see when we get there.
We're going to have to find it. We're going to do nothing but Are You Afraid of the Dark until we find it. Then, and only then, can we rest.
We felt that way before. Sometimes we just got to find out. Sometimes we just got to know.
Gotta know. Do you think they celebrate the anniversaries of every other member?
I would hope that they do, even if we don't see it.
Or do they just do your first anniversary?
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, but the anniversary celebration and like having to tell a tale for your anniversary. Oh, I like the sound of all of it.
It sounds great.
I just really enjoy it. And I hope that they carry that through.
Be nice to think of it as like that member's birthday that they celebrate, but we know that they do celebrate their actual birthdays. So
yeah, they could just pick one. There are quite a few of them.
It would be nice since they're supposed to not know anything about each other outside of the society.
Yeah, they just use that as the day that they celebrate.
That would be cool.
The day that you became one of us.
The day you were born into our
Makes it sound way more culty than it is.
Maybe that's why they couldn't do that.
As we said before, not only did I do my first watch of this episode on a full moon, but today, right now, as we're recording this episode, it is indeed also a full moon, and this was all unplanned and just pure sweet serendipity.
Sweet, sweet flower moon.
Eerie things happen when the moon is full. People always act a little bit different, a little strange. But to anybody who's ever told a tale of terror, there's one special thing that always happens when the full moon rises.
Somewhere outside of a small farmhouse, a weremole is eating a grandmother.
True. Right around this same time. We have talked full moons over, under, and sideways in previous episodes, both the science and the superstition, and there are all kinds of claims about this phenomenon called the lunar effect. While studies about human behavior haven't been especially conclusive, the ancient and enduring correlations, both illusory and unexplainable, are still going as strong in the year of our Lord 2025 as they were back in 1993.
Thank God they are.
And I betcha most all of us in the pretty dark world have our full moon anecdotes.
Mm-hmm.
We're creating one together here today.
Oh, so spooky.
Of the dozens of full moon studies conducted, one did catch my eye in relation to this episode, though it still left plenty of questions unanswered.
Mm-hmm.
Via Wikipedia.
In 2000, a retrospective study in the United Kingdom reported an association between the full moon and significant increases in animal bites to humans. The study reported that patients presenting to emergency departments with injuries stemming from bites from an animal rose significantly at the time of a full moon during the period of the study, 1997 to 1999. The study concluded that animals have an increased inclination to bite a human during a full moon period. It did not, however, address the question of how humans came into contact with the animals and whether this was more likely to happen during the full moon. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Why are these humans so close to all these various animals?
We'll take this moment to remind you out there listening that science is very important, and our scientific method is also very important. The way that a study is conducted is as important, or more perhaps, than the conclusions that it draws.
Yeah.
You have to add in a whole lot of variables and be prepared to account for their effects on the study. So, while they did note that yes, animals do bite humans more during a full moon based on these emergency department findings,
they don't answer the question, how many of the humans were trying to bite the animals first?
Exactly. And if they had asked that question, it would have been a whole different study. I have a feeling.
That's a different study entirely, and I want to know the results.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story The Tale of the Full Moon.
Frank begins, and we zoom in on a quintessential kid's backyard fort with handmade signs reading, "No girls allowed." No, wait. That was the Berenstain Bears and the Little Rascals. It says, Olsen & Olsen Mystery Agency. They'll solve any crime by dinner time.
You're lying.
No, obviously that's not it either.
Take it back.
Okay.
What did it say?
Here on this full moon, with a crescent moon on the sign, inexplicably.
Did it really?
It's Harrison Downs, Pet Detectives. Their slogan is different, but also effective. No job too small. Chihuahuas are specialty.
Chihuahuas bite. They're feisty.
They're also a small job.
Oh, that's funny. That went right over my head.
Is it funny if I had to explain it?
Yeah, it's funnier now that you've explained the joke.
I was immediately smitten since baby Kaylin was the entrepreneurial, Harriet the Spy, let's build a fort kind of kid. The word influencer hadn't yet entered our brains, and we made ourselves busy instead by solving mysteries and selling lemonade.
Oh, dude. Sold lemonade, washed cars.
I sold scrunchies. At one point, I was sewing scrunchies, and then I was setting up a table out in my front yard to sell them to the neighborhood children, probably much to their parents' dismay.
That's some Girl Scouts business right there.
And I was doing it. The fort, or shed really, houses best friends Jed and Huey, played by Dominic Zamprogna and Jesse Lavendel, respectively. While Jesse seems to have left his TV acting career behind in the 90s, Dominic continued on, having appeared in things like the Neverending Story TV series, voicing Atreyu, Supernatural, The L Word, Battlestar Galactica, and Smallville. He also returned to Are You Afraid of the Dark for the 2-part Tale of Cutter's Treasure.
Hey, all right.
His most prolific role, though, was as Dante on General Hospital. The character's original run spanned from 2009 to 2018, with several appearances aside.
It's a good run.
Yeah, he was a soap star. You can kind of see it. You can feel it from him, you know?
Yeah.
He was meant for that soapy screen.
All them bubbles.
Jed and Huey are discussing the latest case that they've been hired to crack, that of neighbor Miss Neville's missing cat, Misty, just like the Pokemon trainer.
Mm-hmm. Why did you charge Mrs. Neville $20? Our rate for missing cats is only $5.
Yeah, but the puppies at the pet shop are $20 a piece.
Damn inflation. Right away, we know Jed is laser focused on adopting his own furry friend, though his mom is unconvinced.
I'm a boy, and a boy's supposed to have a dog.
Quick aside, you should visit your local animal shelter if you're looking to adopt a pet.
Absolutely.
Maybe not the pet store.
Yeah.
Let the demand be for the animal shelters and empty those out
first,
rather than to have the demand cause the filling of the pet stores through usually largely unethical means. That's another story for another time.
My God.
In and amongst some of the campiest dialogue yet to grace our pretty dark screens, the boys do a clipboard inventory on their pet finding gear, including a catnip mouse, a squeezy rubber hamburger, and a silver, not-so-silent dog whistle, which Jed promptly sits on with an exaggerated facial expression.
What's wrong?
Found the whistle.
What do you think the joke was? What was the joke there? What was the insinuation?
What do you think the joke was? What do you think they were getting at? It surprised me, actually. I was like, oh.
What I think the joke is that's the wrong way to use a whistle. That's the wrong part of your body you're supposed to use.
You got that right. And fun fact about dog whistles while we're here, dog whistles were invented in the late 1800s by a half-cousin of Charles Darwin.
No way.
Yeah.
Do they actually work?
Yes, many do. And they work primarily on domesticated animals, dogs, cats as well, many of them.
Oh.
It's a frequency.
I understand it's a frequency that they can hear that we can't, but what's the actual purpose of a dog whistle?
For training. Often it's so that they can identify the sound, and it's for hunting purposes, it's going to send them after the game or what have you. There are a lot of ways to use it. Primarily today, dog whistles are used to curb barking behaviors that are undesirable.
Oh, because it hurts their ears.
When I was growing up, my parents had a little button. They called it the button that they would use when our dog was barking in an undesired way,
it's not,
which was often.
It's not so much that it's only a sound that they can hear, it's a sound that hurts their ears.
I don't think all of them hurt their ears, just some, depending on the frequency.
Because in every bit of media ever, you blow a dog whistle, you hear dogs barking in the distance. But why do they bark at it? Because they can hear a lot of different noises.
I assume it's not pleasant, even if not excruciating.
Yeah.
I think it's just not pleasant, and it's probably a very sharp, sudden sound.
That makes sense.
The way that we would respond to a, sudden dog barking or something.
I also don't like very sudden, loud, sharp sounds.
Yeah, who does? Soon, they're off to comb the streets in search of Misty. But hang on for a second. We got to talk about pet detectives. These are literal detectives that assist on missing pet cases. When I heard the term growing up, and I am, in fact, a little bit embarrassed to admit this, I somehow absorbed the term pet detective as a tongue-in-cheek, pejorative used to belittle a real detective or private eye.
Oh, really?
More so than an actual profession. Oh, you're just a pet detective. You're not good enough to work on human cases, so you're just a pet detective. That's funny. That's what I thought.
That's great.
I don't know why.
I didn't assume that. I assumed the joke was that nobody would ever need a detective to solve an animal crime.
We both kind of took it similarly then. It would never be serious.
Yeah, in a way. I was like, this was obviously a joke. Kid president.
Yeah.
No kid can be president.
I took it more of you'll never actually be a detective. You're just a pet detective. Psh, what do you know? That's how I thought of it. But
I guess I just assumed it was a funny movie franchise, and that was it.
I mean, you and a lot of other people, I think. And that's why it's very important that we talk about it today on That's Pretty Dark.
Yeah, I need to know, which came first, the dog catcher or the pet detective?
This whole industry feels like it's a chicken or the egg kind of question.
Yeah.
And it honestly makes me even more impressed with the mind of Ron Oliver. Ever since, and honestly before the dawn of suburban life, humans have sought companionship from domesticated animals. Presumably, for just as long, those animals have turned up missing. And yes, I did kind of write those sentences to sound sort of noir. I hope you noticed.
Oh, we gotta lay in some music. Make it work.
I believe there were likely always community members or groups dedicated to helping the cause.
Since the dawn of time.
Difference is, they weren't always so methodical, nor always called pet detectives.
She walked into my office with legs that went all the way up to her tail, and she perched on the edge of my desk, and she said...
Barked out some orders.
She barked out some orders. That's pretty good.
I'd kill to write some noir narration. I think that's so fun.
You might even refer to her as the Great Dame.
Nicely done. What you all are probably yelling at me right now is that the name most synonymous with pet detective is Ace Ventura.
Starring Rick Mayall.
But that film wasn't released until a year after this episode aired. And when you go looking for a history of the profession, you find that most of the MVPs and the private investigators didn't hit the scene until the late 90s or early 2000s after the success of the film Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Wow.
But one such MVP, who is kind of the spearhead of the whole pet detective movement, is Kat Albrecht. And yes, her name is Kat.
Meow.
She was a former police bloodhound handler whose own dog was missing and tracked in 1996. When she first came up with the idea to develop Lost Pet Services, a friend told her she was having a pipe dream if she thought she could make a living as a pet detective.
Kat's vision immediately expanded from a small business concept to developing lost pet services worldwide. In spite of struggles and setbacks, Kat is the founder of Missing Animal Response Network, an international organization that offers missing animal response training for field workers, canine handlers, shelter staff, animal control officers, and volunteers, and also works to conduct research into lost pet behaviors. Her first ever online Pet Detective Academy trains not only missing animal response technicians, but also search dogs to track lost pets, both in trailing and cat detection. Cat detection. A lot of different categories of animal detectiveness.
Animal detectiveness and support. Basically, Kat was not the first person to pioneer pet rescue, presumably.
Yeah.
But she might have been the first that we have documented to apply techniques that law enforcement might use to solve missing person cases, including the tech, the grid search methods, and most importantly and effectively, tracking dogs.
Yeah.
So she kind of pioneered training dogs to track other animals for a helpful search and rescue kind of purpose.
Cat detection.
Not for hunting, you know?
A different kind of hunting.
I felt like dogs finding other dogs and cats would be kind of a Pixar film waiting to happen, but I guess Paw Patrol probably has cornered that market already. According to a 2019 article from Healthy Paws Pet Insurance, there are 29 registered pet detective services in the US, though most instead use terms like missing animal rescue, and many only date back to the early 2000s, like 2005 or so. So, while I can report to you Darklings today that it is a real profession, unfortunately, I still couldn't trace the origins of the term pet detective. And it appears that it just simply wasn't colloquial until Jim Carrey made it a household concept.
That's so insane.
So we would have to ask Ron himself where he came up with this bit, and I, for one, am hella curious. The only thing I can figure is it's just one of those things that was in the ether.
That makes sense.
At the time.
I mean, wow. What a coincidence, though, for real.
This episode came out in 93 and then Ace Ventura in 1994, so
they were making Ace Ventura while
they
this
were
was
probably
being
making
also being made and airing.
It was concurrent, more than likely.
So do you know if
there
they
just
charge?
weren't uses of that term.
Do you know if they charge fees?
I think some services do, much like you would hire like a personal private investigator. I think there are some services that are like that. I think some are more like volunteer based. It just depends.
Yeah, so which is more effective, hiring a pet detective or putting up, lost posters around
if I lost
town?
any of my pets, I'd be doing both.
Where did you last see Sphinx? Well, he was right where he always is, on the couch asleep. Well, does he have any habits? Does he frequent any local brothels? Any watering holes? Would he sneak out in the middle of the night? Have you checked your alarm system? Are your cameras working, sir?
This is
the camera wire's been cut since Tuesday. Sphinx, you made your escape at last.
I keep wanting to chime in with the narrator, but I'm at a loss. That's another interesting line, is that pretty much all of the pet detective cases that you see talk more about a missing animal that's being found rather than a crime involving a pet. You feel me?
Sure.
It's different.
So they're not investigating animals that commit crimes.
Or that. Because it could also be crimes committed by animals that are being... See, you understand now why I always was confused by the term. Because it could go so many different directions.
They had to find that bear that was sneaking into people's houses and eating all their food in their fridge.
In this episode, it kind of has some crossover. It kind of has to be both.
Yeah, totally.
That was a good joke. I didn't acknowledge it well enough.
Thank you for acknowledging it.
So there's still a bit of an air of mystery surrounding this profession. Although today, I would say it makes total sense that missing pets would fall squarely in the wheelhouse of two young, aspiring private investigators / dog owners. But once again, the chicken or the egg. Does it make sense to me because of when I was born and how much Mary-Kate and Ashley I watched?
Uh-huh.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? Always solving crimes, those two.
Not always pet-related, but somewhere. So now Jed, Huey, and Jed's boy band earring, a la Mickey Bunce, now traipse across the neighborhood of stucco surreality, wielding their trusty magnifying glass, fishing net, and catnip mouse. Huey thinks he's got a lead, and, in air quotes, please note my air quotes, leaps over the top of a fence, only to land holding an agitated neighbor's wig.
Oh my God, that was insane. I mean, he should definitely go with like
track and field of some kind.
Well, I was gonna say like gymnastics. Like he should be training for the Olympics.
Floor routine.
Hell of a
right?
leap.
Jump this 6-foot privacy fence just straight over.
Landing safely.
Do some tuck and roll.
Killer.
The score also really struck me here, as he is petting this wig and smiling up at the neighbor all cheesy. The double bass, the vibraphone, the snare drum. It is noir-flavored camp comedy with its kicks and starts, perfectly accentuating the overblown angles and facial expressions.
It's something.
If you don't know what I mean and you haven't seen the episode in a while, it would only take about 10 seconds to get the picture. Jed stumbles upon Misty's tag at the house across the street and radios over to Huey.
Rin Tin Tin to Lassie. Think I found Misty. The house across the street from my place.
I pose this question to you here. Would kids today know these references at all?
They would know Lassie, I think, because it's still referenced.
Might. Because there was a 1994 Lassie movie.
Oh, maybe
and
that's
I think
the
that
reason.
Might be why.
I think it's referenced enough still, but not Rin Tin Tin.
Rin Tin Tin was a Warner Brothers star from 1918 to 1932, 100 years ago.
That's bonkers.
I knew the reference. That's wild to me to think, and I do think that generations beyond us would be like, who?
Yeah.
Or they just missed the joke.
They just wouldn't care. It'd be like old people stuff.
Honestly, yeah.
Lassie and Rin Tin Tin. I gotta go home for dinner.
I gotta go home for dinner. Who else has been there? I feel like that always happened just when the game was getting good.
Just when things were getting good, man. Yeah.
You gotta go home for dinner.
The street lights come on. We could always smell my mom's cooking. Like we always knew that it was my mom's food.
Wow.
And as soon as it hit and it was like wafting over the neighborhood, we were like,
it's time to go home.
Man, dinner's almost ready. Like it's almost in any second she'd come to the porch and yell our names and we'd know to come home for dinner. But good times. God bless the suburbs, man. Like I miss just roaming around the neighborhood like this and some nonsense galore.
My Lion King shirt and my bicycle and a dream.
Magnifying glasses, burning leaves, looking for lost pets. We did that actually. We helped.
Oh, I did too. If I ever saw or got a wind of any of that, a flyer, I was I was on the case.
We'd see flyers, posters and stuff around.
But I didn't know I was a pet detective.
In the neighborhood or up at
didn't know that's what a pet detective was.
Up at the Circle K, we'd be like, we're going to find this cat. We're going to collect this $40, that they're offering. For sure. Or whatever. This money is ours. And then we never found it. We never found a cat.
Jed clocks a padlock on this chicken wire wrapped wrought iron front porch and a large bone in a fly-infested trash can. No one comes to the door when he knocks, so he sneaks around back and on the way finds dozens of cat collars, some just resting neatly in a pile. He peers into the sliding patio door, taking a beat to duck out of view of the neighbor inside, and then looks on as the man seasons some ground beef on the counter. When neighbor man pauses to answer a phone call, Jed lets himself in and scopes out the fridge. It's full to the brim with Tupperware containers of raw ground meat. As someone who has recently been forced into annoyingly specific dietary needs, I do say, okay, yeah, that's suspicious, but also let's not judge folks by the contents of their refrigerator. Unless, of course, the food is uncovered. And then we can judge them all we want.
You know, food allergies didn't exist back in the 90s.
Yeah, not at all.
It's all the vaccines we've been giving our kids ever since.
Jesus Christ.
That's what's causing.
Don't get me started. Vaccines save lives, just to be clear.
Literally yours, mine, everyone else's, your grandmother's, your newborns.
Another radio call breaks the silence, and neighbor man ominously appears at the top of the stairs, cast in the light and shadow of the blinds.
I'll call you back.
Jed bolts, catches his baggy 90s flannel on a protruding nail in the doorframe, and then gets away just in the nick of time.
Who just has nails in their door frames like that? Just sticking out. That's
just sticking out for anybody to get caught on.
That's a hazard.
I'm shocked he was the first person to get caught on it.
Yeah, but you think there'd be like a tuft of werewolf fur on it.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, as far as this episode goes, I'm surprised there wasn't.
That would have been a fun clue. He goes, pulls it out of his shirt. And I may have missed this. You may have said it. Is that house for sale?
I don't think so. They had just moved in.
Did it say sold on the for sale sign?
I think it must have said sold because they had just moved in.
Okay.
They're new to the neighborhood.
New wolf in the burbs, man.
Mr. Neighborman, whose name we actually never get, is played by Peter Colvey, who mostly acted on TV through the 80s and into the early aughts. He had credits including the Lassie TV series.
Oh, speaking of Lassie.
The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, and the Growing Pains movie.
Hey.
Though he passed in 2019, we will see him again as he reappears in Season 4's Tale of the Long Ago Locket.
All right.
Back at home, with the lawn flamingos and the high-angle shots, Jed is freaked. The house and Jed's mom are decked out in 50s to 60s era colors, silhouettes, and sitcom-y speech patterns, further adding to the surreal tone.
It's surreal, you're right.
His mom, seated on a leopard print sofa and painting her toenails, is played by Ellen David. Ellen has the most lengthy resume of the bunch, also with Shelby Woo, Country Mouse and City Mouse Adventures, Ripley's Believe It or Not, 18 to Life, and a bunch more voice acting as recently as 2024.
Hey.
Most excitingly for us, though, is that she voices Bitsy Baxter, Buster's mom, in 60 episodes of Arthur.
That's fun.
In the Dread Central article, she spoke to her time on the show. She said, I had done a few auditions for the series, and the producers knew me, but it never seemed like a good fit until this role came along, and it was right up my alley. Carl, who played Gordon, and I had actually gone to theater school together and became great friends, so it was wonderful that here we were on a professional gig together. I also really enjoyed working with Ron Oliver. I really connected with the sense of style and comedy that he wanted to bring to the episode, and he was very open to collaboration and me bringing in added touches to flesh out the character. The episode was filmed in Montreal, and while part of it may have been done in a studio, we were on location in a house that was decorated perfectly to illustrate that 50s style.
You think it was already decorated like that?
I don't know. She didn't specify. I was like, did you just go out and find a house that had all this stuff
Maybe
already?
she doesn't understand
set dressing. I'm sure she did. She's an actress.
This house came like this? This is perfect. Wow. Flamingos are a nice touch.
I mean, it is decorated like someone would have decorated their own personal home in the 50s, so.
Oh, that's true.
Who
I mean,
knows?
yeah, it's a very, 60s
It felt 60s to me more than 50s, honestly.
I couldn't understand the vibe.
Yeah.
Like the music and everything. We're gonna get to it. But everything about it. I need somebody to tell me what that is.
It's 60s, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We have gone back. It's the 30-year cycle. It's the 60s and the 90s. Because she's like,
60s to the
mom
90s,
painting
yeah.
her nails on the, it's a 90s storyline in a 60s skin. You know what I mean?
I guess that's true. A lot of werewolf stuff was 60s too, 50s and 60s.
Which I think is why there was that tie-in.
Beachy, Florida meets the 1960s meets surf music, island.
I mean,
music.
surf island music was huge in the 60s. Think of the Beach Boys.
No, that's true. That's true. It's very tropical 60s.
There's some tropical
meets,
elements.
Montreal suburbs.
That is the most ridiculous story I have ever heard.
But it's true! His fridge was full of meat. I bet he's got his eye on every pet in the neighborhood.
Jed is insisting that the meat that he saw in the fridge must be all of the missing neighborhood pets. Dog burgers, fried canary, hamster soup. But his mom is certain that this is just another one of his cockamamie I want a dog schemes. I had so many cockamamie I want a dog schemes in my life.
Yeah.
So many.
None of them had to do with lying about the new neighbors keeping buckets of raw meat in their fridge.
I cannot say I ever
and nothing
pulled
else.
that one off.
Well, there was some salt and pepper on the island, but he did have eggs as well.
Mm-hmm. What? Burgers.
You figure I'm going to believe this silly story of yours and let you bring home every single stray in the neighborhood just to protect them from the butcher of Maple Street. Not this time, kiddo.
And this sounds straight out of a Penny Dreadful, don't it?
Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
Thank you. Ellen, yes, that's her character's name too, explains that they don't have the funds to support another mouth to feed, even if they do have 4 legs and bring in the mail. That's the paper, right? Like dogs bring in the paper?
Yeah.
Jed huffs that his dad probably would have believed him, and we get this very emotional close-up with organ music, and she wistfully, distantly says,
Probably would.
Then we pan over to a family photo on the table. And then she says,
Creep.
As she flips the photo over.
So melodramatic, but I need to know the backstory
this poor,
of his dad.
jilted divorcee. This is a pretty sophisticated, dark joke for a kid's show, and is far more John Waters than it ever was DJ McHale.
I know.
But somehow,
what did he
it still
do?
works. What did he do?
What did the man do?
Nothing good.
Dad always believed me.
But of course, we're meant to believe that he has passed on, and instead we find maybe not.
Yeah, he's just a creep.
Full moon rising above, Jed reconvenes in his room, setting up a camcorder to surveil the house across the street. This right here was likely my introduction to Hitchcock's 1954 film Rear Window. And all of the burbs-like horror of neighborhood life.
Disturbia.
I can see a bunch of parents recognizing the Hitchcock influence if they happen to catch this airing on SNCC, and that, to me, is just one of those cycles that we love.
It is, absolutely.
My dad would have commented on that 50,000%. As you just said, we've also talked about another Rear Window descendant, Disturbia, on the show before. That's one of our favorite Shia films, the hottest kissing scenes of my high school memory. And I think the Disturbia similarities are especially worthy of note with the use of the camcorder and considering the way that the relationship with the neighbor does play out.
That's true.
I feel like before Shia brought it to the aughts, Ron Oliver brought it to the 90s.
Yeah, I talked about Disturbia when we did our Nightly Neighbors episode. And it's funny because when we covered the tale of the Nightly Neighbors, I hadn't seen an 80s classic that I've now seen called Fright Night.
Hold that thought. I beseech you.
Yeah?
Because we've got some things to say about Fright Night also.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna sit real close to the edge of my seat because I loved that movie. I just watched that very recently.
I'm so glad you did.
I watched it the same night I rewatched Drop Dead Fred.
Oh, double feature.
Stay in that. I had to stay in that same mindset. So I just flipped it over to another 80s film that had been calling out to me for some time, and there it was.
You're gonna help us shed some very important light on the subject.
Let's do it.
Through the viewfinder and through his window, we watch a blue-shirted neighbor man grab his face as if he's in pain, and then keel over, shouting. What rises is not neighbor man, no, but a menacing wolf creature. Jed's scream takes us to commercial break, and y'all, it is pretty scary. With the added distance of the viewfinder and the window, we get this air that we're watching something that is not meant for us. And that would be more than enough to unsettle little me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude. Anything through a camera lens is gold. It has that dirty,
raw,
camcorder tape texture to it. That's just, it's so rich.
Yep.
It's so good.
One of many reasons I rewatched Disturbia. Ellen bursts into his room, cold cream, hair rollers, fuzzy trimmed robe and all. Struggling to catch his breath, Jed tells her that the man across the street just turned into a wolf. Her frantic parting of the blinds, revealing a dark house across the way, becomes instant annoyance.
You got me out of bed for this?
I saw him, Mom. I had my camera aimed right at his
shit. What is the matter with you? Spying on that poor man.
As she's talking over him to scold him, it sounds like she's saying shit rather than Jed. She goes, Jed, what's the matter with you?
Shit, what's the matter with you?
Yeah. I couldn't unhear it once I heard it. Spying on that poor man. Jed tries to play the tape back for her, but of course, somehow, he didn't catch it.
Okay, Spielberg, that's enough. Show's over. Into bed with you.
She's joking here, but I recently restarted Dawson's Creek, and I do really like the implication that there were so many of us, thinking in movies back then. Camcorders had only just become sort of accessible, and it felt like something we could accomplish. So I feel like our generation just had a very unique relationship with movies because we knew that they were make-believe, but they inspired us to want to make that kind of make-believe.
Well, it's either that complicated or it's as simple as learning that one of your friends wants to be a writer, and so you call them Hemingway to be a jerk.
Well, she's joking, but I liked it and found it nostalgic. And it's another stark contrast from our generation to Gen Alpha, because we were imagining feature films, and they, honestly with far more technical skills because they've been born into it, imagine TikTok transitions and YouTube sketches instead. Jed insists that he saw the transformation, and his mom agrees.
You've got dog on the brain, honey. You're seeing them even in your dreams.
I wasn't dreaming.
The number of times I've had dog on the brain.
I got that dog in me. The next day, back at the agency, Huey's got his nose buried in a gigantic copy of Shapeshifters in History. Jed says everyone knows how it works. They come out during the full moon and you can kill them with silver bullets. But there's more to the story, because that is just in the movies. Huey says the real werewolves are called mesomorphs, not to be confused with animorphs, and they have a disease called lycanthropy. They're allergic to red roses.
That's new.
And pure silver.
Yeah, the red roses thing threw me.
Me too.
Great. All we gotta do is trap him in a flower shop.
Have we also heard the term mesomorph?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
And there's probably a reason for that.
Okay, all right.
Huey says that they need fresh meat to survive, mainly small animals and birds and stuff. But their favorite is...
Children. I smell children.
Obviously, Darklings, as we said at the top of this episode, we are dealing with werewolves here.
Werewolves.
And we have introduced quite a bit of werewolf lore to the Pretty Dark World already. As a very quick refresher, in the Courage Weremole episode a couple years ago, we talked through potential werewolf origins like Gilgamesh, the Greek myth of Lycaon, Nordic folklore, a series of 16th century serial killers in France, and the German killer, Peter Stube. And we concluded that humans are often the scariest creatures of all, which is still true and probably still echoes in this episode.
Thank you, Scooby-Doo.
As I watched The Tale of the Full Moon, I was hoping that I had thrown myself a bone and left any werewolf lore to discuss. And luckily, as you just said, we had a couple of new leads, or at least new presentations of them. As far as the mesomorph thing, the only thing that I could find about a mesomorph is that it's a specific, extremely muscular body type.
Oh.
The word isn't used in reference to werewolves anywhere that I could uncover.
Mesomorph.
All the articles, when you look it up, are like Healthline and Britannica's like health segment and what should mesomorphs avoid? To maintain muscle mass and prevent increase in body fat, people with a mesomorph body type should avoid eating food that could delay their health goals, including high fat content foods like fried foods, margarine, pizza, bacon.
Is this a muscular person or just an enlarged person?
A mesomorph body type is characterized by a muscular, athletic build with a medium frame, low body fat, and a tendency to gain muscle easily.
That honestly must be where they got it from. Because otherwise it would be like Mesoamerica, which isn't too far off because there's a lot of, Central and South American folklore to do with shapeshifters and such, like the Midwest
which
in the North America.
Precisely the path that I thought I'd be going down. And that is not what met me on Google.
But of course, to go way, way back to the origins of all occult folklore and mythology goes back to Mesopotamia and shit, way back in the day.
Yeah.
So
I thought we were going on a different trail, and I think that they meant exactly what they said.
Just to play on the body type.
Right. Google says that mesomorphs often have a lean appearance, broad shoulders, and a narrow waist, making them appear well proportioned.
Not to mention all the fur and the sharp, long fangs in the snout.
So, according to this book, people who deal with this affliction are very muscular people who believe that they're werewolves, which is true.
Interesting.
It was just way more literal than I expected it to be, if that makes sense. The roses, though, just like you said, were very new to me. And I didn't find many references to roses being repellent for werewolves either. But I did find reference to roses being a repellent to vampires.
Oh.
I also found a heated online debate about a scene in Fright Night 2. So it's the second film in the franchise. I may have lied to you earlier.
I haven't seen that one.
Where roses are shoved into a werewolf's mouth to kill it. And most debate online said that this was actually a vampire.
Okay.
Apparently, some vampires can themselves masquerade as wolf-like creatures.
Oh, yeah, dude, that goes hand in hand with the earliest vampire lore, is that they don't just shapeshift into bats, they shapeshift into wolves or black dogs. It's specifically black dogs, but they're often described as wolves, black wolves.
And if you're watching something like this play out in an 80s movie, you first assume that the wolf-looking creature on the screen would be a werewolf. But I think everything that was always intended is that that was a vampire. So the roses line up far more with the vampire side than the werewolf side.
I mean, if you watch, Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s starring Gary Oldman, when he turns into the wolf, he actually turns into a werewolf.
There are even more Dracula ties because it was also explained in these online forums from 10 years ago that the character in Fright Night 2 knew that roses would work due to the Dracula novel. And I figured you'd be able to shed some light on that too.
Well, I don't remember there being roses in the Dracula novel, but it's been a long time since I've read it, so
I didn't remember that either, but a lot of people did defend that, if not in Bram Stoker's novel, maybe just in other Dracula media or lore.
Yeah.
So
it's been made a whole lot, so I don't know.
Chime in, Darklings, if you know better than we do. But all that being said, this vampire and werewolf tie led me to TransylvaniaWorld.com, which claims rather aggressively that everyone else has it wrong, and werewolf lore actually originated right along with vampire lore in ancient Romania.
Yes.
The website cites that the Dacians, ancestors of today's Romanians, called themselves a word inherited from the ancient language, Daus, meaning wolf. In that culture, the legend of the great white wolf paints the werewolf in a more positive light, a man transformed into a wolf by Zalmox, the supreme deity of the Dacians, in order to protect the Dacian people from invaders.
Okay.
There are also extensive accounts in this region of a ritual that provides one with the ability to turn into a wolf. Such a transformation may be related to either lycanthropy itself, which is supposedly pretty pervasive in the Balkans Carpathian region, or a ritual imitation of the behavior and appearance of the wolf. Such a ritual was presumably a military initiation, potentially reserved to a secret brotherhood of warriors. To become formidable warriors, they would assimilate behavior of the wolf, wearing wolf skins during the ritual. Traces of artifacts related to the wolves as a cult or as totems were found in this area since the Neolithic period.
Wow. That's pretty neat.
So who really knows? We've talked about a lot of potential origins for both werewolves and vampires, but this one was the first time that I really saw them kind of growing up side by side. And the certainty and the tone on that site was mildly entertaining compared to the dozens of sources that I found last time, claiming that the true origin can't be traced, as it did sort of emerge from a shit ton of cultures all over the place on very similar timelines. One of those in the ether things, yet again.
But if everybody has stories about vampires and werewolves, then isn't that evidence that they're real?
That's kind of what I think. I don't know.
If everybody's talking about like...
Everybody's got a flood story too.
I think that's because there was a flood.
There was one. We just don't know the extent of it. It's messy, right? A Mental Floss article posing the question, when did vampires and werewolves start hating each other?
Vampires and werewolves have crossed paths quite a few times in their long histories. It's thought that, etymologically, one of the terms for vampires used in the Balkans, the Greek phreakalakas, derives partly from a Slavic word for wolf. Writing in The Werewolf in the Ancient World, Daniel Ogden, professor of ancient history at the University of Exeter, notes that for some people in the Balkans, the werewolf has effectively morphed into or merged into the vampire, adding the phreakalakas will still occasionally turn into a wolf, though on the whole, his lupine qualities have dissipated, apart, of course, from his fundamental craving for human blood.
So
very interesting.
Isn't it? In this case, it feels like what came first, the wolf or the bat?
The vampire?
It seems that the wolf came first. In this tradition.
Yeah. I mean, but it could be that the wolf came before the vampire in some cultures, whereas the vampire came first in other cultures. But we've discussed this at length of like all these different types of folkloric creatures all kind of resemble each other.
Yes.
I mean, even down to
much.
zombies, they have a thirst for human flesh, human blood, human brains, right? Brains, but... You know, aliens also want human brains, and vampires also want human blood, and werewolves also want human flesh.
The common denominator in all these spookies and cryptids is they're coming for you.
They coming for you.
They want what you got.
And boy, they're sure gonna get it.
One way or another.
Gonna get you. Witches too.
Witches as well, yes. And I'm glad you say that. Because though some of the most famous cases of lycanthropy were crime-related, as with accusations of vampirism and witchcraft, accusations of lycanthropy have been made during some periods of history to denounce personal or political rivals, or to otherwise punish or ostracize certain members of society, from hermits and beggars and immigrants to suspected pedophiles and serial killers.
I see. Immigrants. That's wow. Yowza.
The other common denominator is that the whole concept of most of these creatures was often used to otherize people. Sometimes deserved, but very often not so much.
It's definitely a lot of xenophobia and hatred and fear of the outsider.
And we went there deeply in Tale of the Nightly Neighbors.
I will say there's a lot of credibility with the whole pedophile and murderer, like serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
Argument.
Well, yeah, we talked about that in the Weremole
Peter
episode. That is where we really draw on those ideas that humans can't accept that another human would do this, so they have to create a whole nother being to have done so.
And there's also ties to Dracula, and like even when we talked about Thriller and the whole concept of like puberty and like boys becoming men, men becoming and wolves or werecats
puberty
or
being
vampires.
Scary as a concept, yeah.
It can also be a massive metaphor for really just any sexual predator, which is typically, you know, obviously pedophiles and most serial killers are sexually motivated. So there's a reason why these labels are sort of stamped on top of each other.
And there's a reason why it all sounds similar when you
but
learn
not immigrants, though.
No.
But they're out there eating our cats and dogs and all of our pets. They must be werewolf immigrants.
That's the thing. That's the thing, exactly. Sometimes these concepts were used to get distance from a criminal or such a horrible, heinous thing that a human couldn't wrap their brain around another human doing it. Whereas other times it was weaponized and used by the oppressive ruling class. Mm-hmm. For example, men, when it came to the Salem witch trials, against women that intimidated them.
Yep.
Or just like we talked about the xenophobia with the whole concept of vampirism in Nightly Neighbors and beyond.
Yeah.
It can go in a very real, valid, these are serial killers kind of way, or it can be weaponized and used against innocent people.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to be said, and you have to be able to figure out the nuance in the circumstance and the situation.
Yes, for sure.
Before we depart from our werewolf lore, as far as the medical stuff goes, since it's brought up twice in this episode, both from the book and from the mouth of Neighbor Man, if we're going to be technical about it, if you are actually transforming into a werewolf, you don't have lycanthropy in the clinical sense.
Right.
Because clinical lycanthropy is defined as the delusion.
It's a delusion. It's a psychological disorder.
Right. Conceivably, the werewolf in this story could be suffering from a combination of real life conditions or diseases, including clinical lycanthropy, like you said, which is psychological. It's a rare form of delusional misidentification syndrome. Mm-hmm. It's the belief that one has or can transform into an animal. Congenital terminal hypertrichosis, which is the type of hair is terminal, it's not terminal, which is fully pigmented hair that covers the entire body, and a common comorbidity of congenital terminal hypertrichosis, gingival hyperplasia, which causes the gums to recede severely.
Making the teeth appear elongated.
And fang-like.
Wow.
So it's interesting to me that those two conditions go hand in hand and may explain a lot of our historical cases of a werewolf is loose in town.
Because you hide someone away, somebody who has these conditions, and they're kept from society, and if somebody for fear
gets a
that
glimpse,
they will be
like happens in this episode,
and then they catch a glimpse of this person walking through the woods, and then somebody else across town is murdered, you're going to blame the creature,
that you saw,
the monstrous-looking thing, the humanoid wolf-like person you saw.
Bingo.
You're going to blame that.
It is really easy to see throughout the course of history before we had a better understanding of science, modern medicine, etc. It's really easy to see how this could happen.
So
but
easy.
This that we're discussing today is fiction. And even though his brother says that Gordon has a disease, he looks like a real werewolf to me. Meanwhile at Jed's, Ellen is enjoying a boppy 60s tune on her record player and laying out the table for dinner, origami napkins, stemware, and all. When Jed arrives, she tells him to go get washed up, and he's perplexed. He didn't know they'd be having company. She explains that the man she told him about, the one she met bowling a couple weeks ago, is coming for dinner.
You're having a date?
Oh, it's not a date, it's just dinner. It doesn't mean a thing. Oh, shoot! Dora, go get the Jed. You know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
We totally believe you.
One extra lady I've ever seen one.
Jed answers the door to, you guessed it,
you must be Jed.
Neighbor Man, with a couple dozen red roses in hand.
Red roses.
So much for that theory. Around the table, and served with unusually colorful plates of food, Ellen boasts that she adores cooking.
It's been so long since I've had a man around to try my talents on.
This is like Desperate Housewives meets Donna Reed. It's such a mix of pop culture, and it's like you said, it's hard to pin it down, but you know where you think it should go.
Yeah, it's like it's obvious. You understand what's happening.
Yeah.
But
it's such a mixtape.
What's up with her food though? Why is it like blue?
I don't know.
Like solid blue and green.
Couldn't tell you.
Orange.
They just went really over the top on the set deck this time.
It's crazy. It's like they tried to throw in some Tim Burton at the same time.
You said it.
Oh, well, this smells great. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse.
Or a cat?
I didn't get in on this recent TikTok trend, but this is also timely for some reason. The Darklings that get it.
How are you finding Maple Street?
That's great. People are much friendlier here than the last place I lived.
Or was that Transylvania?
Here's yet another link between the vampires and the werewolves. So maybe this was intentional.
Where was that?
Where is he from? Seattle. As they pass a plate of yams, Judd stabs him with a fork.
Ouch! How do you like that, huh? Pure silver. Yeah!
Oh my God, he stabs stabs the guy.
He jumps up from the table and pushes back the curtain so that moonlight spills in.
Watch, your mommy's gonna change.
Jed, you apologize right now.
No, Ellen, it's all right. No harm done.
Yeah, no harm done except for being stabbed in the hand.
Yeah,
with
the
a
wound in my
fork.
hand. These two, still infatuated with each other, resume their meal with an eye roll and a chuckle. Kids. What are you gonna do?
If I had a nickel for every time I've been stabbed by a youth, by a street youth.
Youths.
Kids being kids. Boys becoming
Soon,
men.
she's checking on him upstairs as she dons some charmingly anachronistic gloves. She relays that they're going out for coffee and his dinner's in the Kelvinator. That is the fridge,
I was
by
going
the
to say,
way.
what's a Kelvinator?
And this brand, Kelvinator, was mostly produced in the 20s and 30s, so I guess it's conceivable that it would have been around in the 50s or 60s. But extending into the 90s is probably unlikely, even though they did make things a lot better and sturdier and longer lasting back then.
They made things to last.
Because they weren't in the clutches of planned obsolescence and capitalism.
It's not because they were made in America.
Nope.
It's because
corporations figured out they could dupe us and we would play in.
Oh, you mean American corporations?
American corporations over decades.
Are you saying that not everything made in America is good and built to last?
Built to last? No.
Are you saying that they're here just to scam us out of our dollars and dimes and pennies and nickels and our quarter dollars and our silver dollars?
But this to me was still funny because it was just, hey, what's a funny 60s thing she could say? I'll call it the Kelvinator.
The Kelvinator.
You know? Clearly was just tossed in to give the flavor.
Stuck in the past, this woman.
Of the 60s.
I think it's because she's already lived like her best days, but
and she's nostalgic.
She's nostalgic for her time when the creep was still around. Like, I don't understand her vibe.
Maybe more so like when she was a teenager.
Before the creep.
She's nostalgic for her teenage days.
Pre-creep days.
Yes. I think that may have been what happened, if we're really going to psychoanalyze Ellen for a second, is that she divorced, moved on, and then regressed to her teenage years.
She's stuck in the past.
To a time that was untainted by said creep.
I think that's
which is giving some Drop Dead Fred vibes, too.
Isn't this why we just live in the 90s? Because it was before we had to be adults. And
pure.
Everything got so complicated.
Yeah, we're not so unlike Ellen, it turns out. As soon as she's out of earshot, Judd dials up Huey, who takes his call in the bathtub, in his flowered 60s shower cap and goggles.
Guess I must have been dreaming after all. That guy's not a werewolf.
Did you do the test?
Yeah.
Did you use pure silver?
Yes.
How about the moon?
I did the test, all right.
Okay. So your mom's boyfriend isn't a werewolf. That's that.
Judd didn't give any context. So how does Huey know that this is his mom's boyfriend?
Hey, that's a good point.
Did Huey have a camcorder scoped on Judd's house?
Oh, interesting.
Who's to say? Something's still not sitting right, though, and Judd thinks that they need to go back to the house, instructing Huey to towel off. Cut to flashlights and hoodies as they hit the bricks again. Huey would prefer to come back when someone's home, like at noon, but Judd is undeterred.
Why do you keep saying we? Because we're partners, Huey. To the end.
The end?
Gulp.
They head to the back patio where Judd busts out a real deal crowbar, and we get all the classic sneaky tropes.
Massive crowbar.
Massive crowbar. It was probably in the shed where they've been holed up in their detective agency.
I guess so.
I thought about that for a second. I was like, where did he have access to this? He's been conducting business from a shed, so.
Dad's old tools.
Judd goes to show Huey the fridge, which is now empty. They hear chains rattling and open a nearby door to reveal a folding ironing board. Do they still install ironing boards like that in houses?
Not. No, I imagine not.
I feel like millennials killed the ironing board too. I'm not the one to ask though. I think like we're using steamers now, right? That's like a collective thing.
Yeah, steamers for sure. I just bought a steamer.
Or just another spin in the dryer. But an ironing board?
No.
I think we've moved past that as a society.
No, you don't need that.
Continuing their hunt for proof, Huey finds a family photo in some boxes that have yet to be unpacked.
What does this guy look like?
I don't know. Just like an average guy.
Kinda tall?
Yeah.
Kinda bald?
Judd comes to join him.
Yeah, why? What difference does it make?
Because I think he has a twin brother.
Who saw that coming? Raise your hand.
This werewolf.
This guy.
This werewolf, with impeccable timing, growls over their shoulders. Jed has the presence of mind to snap a Polaroid, which stuns the wolf long enough for them to run. Finding the front door bolted shut, instead of heading for the back door that they came in, they careen up the stairs in some of the coolest and most effective handheld and Dutch angles that we've seen from the show
For sure,
this far.
but hey, if you're running from anyone, don't go upstairs.
Yeah, probably not the move.
Never go deeper into the structure that you're trying to...
The lair, the cave.
I mean, I get the whole panic thing, but guys...
I feel like this was more of a DP decision because I loved the use of the shadows in this sequence.
Nice.
This director of photography knew what they were doing. And the werewolf coming down the hallway, both in shadow and in substance, was hella spooky.
Pretty spooky.
He's played by Carl Alaki, who had previously played Mr. Braun in The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors and had plenty of credits besides, including appearing as an extra in both The Terminal and Day After Tomorrow.
That was the thing we'd said then. He got to play both a vampire and a werewolf in the Are You Afraid of the Dark universe.
He did both.
Lucky guy.
In the Dread Central article, they interviewed Carl as well. I wouldn't say this quote is groundbreaking information, but it was kind of cool to hear it from the mouth of the villain in the episode, which we don't often get to do for Are You Afraid of the Dark?
The making of the mask was just as surprising as wearing it. Firstly, they made a mold of your face with a straw in my mouth, or nose, or both, don't remember, too much emotions getting my face totally covered in clay strips. Then you get a fitting, and then they glue it up on set with makeup touches. I really loved letting the dog spirit take over. I had to keep that mask on during lunchtime, even while I ate. That's a dream of mine, to act in something, to have so much makeup that I then have to continue being the thing during lunch.
To become the thriller.
Even Johnny Depp had to stay Edward Scissorhands all day. Even when they gave him the option to come out of costume and do other things, he refused.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to stay in character.
Yeah. I think some versions of method acting come from that, from just the necessity of the special effects are too intensive to do it any different way.
Right.
I ate up behind the scenes stuff like that as a kid. And at the time, I had the same thought as you. I was like, that would be so cool. That would be so fun to do. And then now in my older age, I'm like, that is taxing.
It is. It would be exhausting.
That would be taxing. That would be hard on your skin.
Yeah.
Thank an actor today.
It would be the best sleep of your life, though. Can you imagine?
When you get everything off?
I mean, yeah, but resting after a day of that.
Yeah.
How hard you would sleep, how exhausted you would be.
Ellen also had a quote about this. She said, I got to see it from start to finish as Carl put on the mask and developed the character. I went back and watched the episode online recently. I hadn't seen it in so many years, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that it holds up. There were so many fun scenes. I loved the chemistry that I shared with Dominic. It was a great time being his wacky, way out mom. And I even remember the crew laughing at times during the filming of some scenes.
I can imagine.
Oh man, we're in his bedroom.
The boys run until, unsurprisingly, they reach a dead end and barricade themselves in.
Emphasis on the dead.
Once they look around and take stock, they realize that they're in the werewolf's bedroom because there's a dirty mattress on the floor and a black and white photo of his mom. And a giant dog bone.
Oh, it's filthy in there.
As he shakes the door, they try the window, which is also chicken wired shut. I wasn't aware that chicken wire deterred werewolves.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Could have been handy for some communities back in the day, I feel like, to know that information.
We were watching this earlier and they were trying to escape. And Lauren was like, this is supposed to hold a werewolf. And they're trying to take it apart.
Chicken wire.
But they use chicken wire.
We see the moon glowing behind them. We hear the doomed organ music, which we learned is called Toccata in Fugue. And just when he breaks down the door and all hope seems lost for our pet detective duo, Jed pulls out the dog whistle.
Bad dog.
As he whistles, the werewolf drops to his knees and they rotate slowly around the room, cornering him. Of course, in this moment, neighbor man arrives home.
I see you've met Gordon.
My dad's in school.
The wolf becomes docile, panting as neighbor man strokes his head. Mom's got a date with a werewolf. Keeper. Also, I have to ask, do you have a different room for Gordon when he's in his human form?
Right.
Because all of this feels very weirdly neglectful for when he's not a werewolf. And even kind of for when he is.
It must be the werewolf's chambers. I mean, I was confused too.
It's a pretty big house. I'm hoping that there's at least one other bedroom that Gordon gets.
I'm sure there are, but
when he's Gordon.
Yeah, it must just be where they keep him chained up when he's going to be transforming, on those full moonlit evenings, such as this one that we are currently recording on.
Ooh.
Get the chains!
Yeah, well, I got news for you, buddy. Your brother's got a problem.
Yeah, I know. Lycanthropy is a terrible disease. Everybody tells me I should just put him out of his misery. But he's family. That's all I got.
Excuse me, neighbor man. Do you mean put your brother out of his misery?
Like put him to sleep. Yeah.
Kill him. Your brother who has a disease.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps multiple diseases if we're going to take this the medical route.
Oh, no. This is when it gets real. This is when it's like, oh, the stigma. Yeah. Oh, exactly. I get it. They're making a point. This is a metaphor.
Yes. And if we are to maintain the upcoming allegory, I guess this does work because it's sort of a clunky way to both humanize the marginalized and to satirize anyone who might consider them diseased.
Yeah, well, my mom's all I've got, and when she finds out about this, she's gonna...
Jed? I already know.
You're not scared?
I was at first, but I'm trying to understand, honey. I hope you will, too.
With all of this, earnest sincerity.
The first we've seen the whole time.
Does he really eat kids?
Rumors. People can be so cruel. There's lots of different kinds of families, Jed. This is just one of them.
Clearly, there's meant to be a, hey man, it's the 90s progressive metaphor happening.
Hey,
and Ron
man.
confirmed this on no uncertain terms.
Yeah.
Ron said that this was the first script that he wrote for the show, and it was, quoting, definitely about a family dealing with how to tell their kid that his uncle is gay.
Oh, wow. That's totally what I picked up on.
In our case, I just made him a werewolf, but all the rest of it's the same.
I assumed that he was implying...
I mean, it's not subtle.
that his brother's gay. I mean, but it could be a metaphor for any kind of thing. But that's just, I was surprised. I was thinking, there's no way that's what they're trying to say. Mm-hmm. That's incredible that he would do that.
Yeah.
I was scared at first too, son.
Yeah.
Does he go after children? Is that kind of what? No.
Rumors.
That's
people
just
can
a
be
rumor.
so cruel. In fact, that's called pedophilia. It's not. That has literally nothing to do with your sexual orientation at all.
No, yes, exactly. That was the assumption back in the day. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people still do assume
or not even assumption, but the prejudice.
Yes. People still believe that these two things go hand in hand. Lots of people are dumb.
This was, of course, awesome for Network Kids TV in 1993, kind of echoing an after-school special. And it was probably especially meaningful for Ron Oliver. You and I, Christian, have wondered about other queer-coded characters. And Ron said in this interview, other than this specific allegory, sexuality wasn't really an element in the shows, so he wouldn't say he particularly thought of characters as straight or gay. Mm-hmm. They were just the characters with lots of their own traits. The actors were sometimes bringing things to the parts which enhanced them, and then of course those things were sometimes subtextual. Ron said, I do know that a couple of our kid actors came to me many years later having come out as gay and thanked me for being a positive influence as an out gay man in the industry as far back as the late 80s.
Wow.
So I'm proud of that legacy.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So Ron just kind of spoke about what he knew in a way that kids could understand, but also that wouldn't undermine the spooky, are you afraid of the dark element,
That's what horror is so good for.
Yeah.
For using darkness to shed light.
It's a perfect example of why we love horror cinema.
Man, that's so cool.
And speaking of horror cinema, when asked about the John Waters or Tim Burton influences, Ron said,
Full Moon is probably the truest expression of my own artistic sensibilities. I made a movie when I was a kid that looked and felt exactly like it. And that was quite a few years before Mr. Burton. Although I would say when I first saw his short film Frankenweenie, I thought, at last, somebody speaks my language.
You said Tim Burton earlier, and although Ron can't exactly count Tim Burton among his influences going back that far, once again, it's a matter of these people who are alike finding one another through art and their expression of it.
Like-minded individuals, finding affirmation in your contemporaries is also pretty cool.
So I was really thrilled to find all of this, and I was feeling really good about this metaphor and this message. But then, with a sheepish smile, Jed goes,
He's got to stop eating pets.
Well, he's got to stop eating pets. I'm sorry. All of those collars and all the containers in the fridge. Is this meant to imply that this is where all the missing animals have gone?
Yeah, obviously.
Poor Misty.
Yeah, totally.
That's pretty dark. That's pretty dark.
That's the question is, how many of the animals were gotten by the werewolf brother and how many were given to him by the human brother, that neighbor man.
Right. Because if neighbor
brother.
man was supplying his brother with these animals, if he was helping to source and prepare the food, I feel like that's a crime, if not many crimes,
maybe
on top of each other.
Werewolf brother can't hold a job. Maybe he has trouble.
Sure.
Maybe there's stigma. Maybe there's whatever. People know he's a werewolf. They don't want to work with him anymore. They think he's icky, yada, yada, yada. But either way, they bought this big ass house in this suburban neighborhood. The guy clearly has a job, clearly works. Mm-hmm. He should be able to afford meat.
Thank you.
From the store, from the butcher.
Exactly.
He should be able to stop by the butcher's.
Point. I'm sitting over here like, holy shit, they really
He's
went there.
He's only a werewolf once a month, right?
Right. You can, there are concessions that can be made.
You can stock up a deep freezer, go to different butchers if you don't want to be suspicious.
Even Edward Cullen would go and hunt deer, like wild deer.
Yeah,
not
I mean,
Misty,
I know.
Not people's pets with collars and name tags. I don't like that. I don't like that that's where it went. I wish that it had been just slightly different.
They could have explained away the pets thing. It could have been something out of the left field that
which I would have preferred.
This isn't what you thought at all the whole time.
I would have preferred that.
But I think
this is edgy and it's meant for dark humor. It's meant as a joke. It's not meant to be serious.
He had to fold it back into the narrative of the episode. He had to bring it back around.
Right. But I would say it is some of the darkest canon that we've seen from the show.
Yeah, man, eating people's pets.
And it also felt weird to my 2025 eyes, as if to say, well, he may not eat children, but not all of the rumors are unfounded. I don't think that was the intention.
No, I don't
think
so.
that they meant to step on their own point, but still, think of the pets.
Meant to be a funny joke, He's got to stop eating pets. It was just meant
to be a joke. Again, if we're getting philosophical, we're probably thinking
we're doing
too hard
it wrong.
For John Waters.
Yes.
We cut to a totally Wonder Years backyard barbecue as Frank narrates.
It wasn't long before Jed's mom married the man from across the street. They all moved in together, like a family. Jed's mom was happy. The man was happy. And as for Jed...
And we watch an extreme game of fetch because...
he finally got his dog.
The end.
We also do... finally get a surname for neighbor man here, Mr. Anchors, who is named after Evelyn Anchors, who was in the 1941 film Wolfman.
Oh, nice. Such a good one.
Ellen David said, "It was a lovely twist and kind of unexpected for a show of that nature. I think it was a breath of fresh air that we all became one united, happy family despite our differences. I don't know if you noticed, but in the very last scene when we're having the barbecue, our clever costume designer highlighted the fact that we'd become one family. She had a particular quirky pattern fabric that she used for all of our costumes, my apron, my husband's shirt, the werewolf's collar. It was a very bright, subtle way to unite all of us. It was a fun world to be part of, and I'm really happy that this is the episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark that I participated in."
That's so cool. Yeah, I would be too.
So, like we've said, it's far from a perfect metaphor, but what's really perfect?
Nothing.
And it is, at least, pretty dark. Ron Oliver also called it, "Camp is a row of chiffon tents," which is a phrase that he shared with Richard Dumont, who played Sardo.
Oh, wow.
Our Midnight Society sits silent and schemy as Frank finishes the story. Nary a comment to be had. No reaction about the story whatsoever.
Nothing.
They give him nothing.
And now.
Can you imagine on your first anniversary story, you tell this campy, silly, wacky, wild story. You're kind of going out on a limb with it, giving him even some pride, gay pride buried within. And then you look around at all your friends who are just looking back at you.
Just like
saying nothing.
Not as good as the Phantom Cab, Frank, but all right.
We guess we'll keep you.
And now, our anniversary surprise.
Fire's nice and hot. Special occasion. We planned it just for you.
Roast. Frank.
Say what?
Roast Franks, don't you like them?
Campy.
They cook the hot dogs over the fire as a groovy 60s rock version of the closing theme takes us home. And that, my friends, is the tale of the full moon.
Just howling at the moon.
It's time for your favorite segment, my favorite segment.
Our favorite
the
segment.
Scarometer.
The Scarometer. Man,
what did you give this episode?
This episode didn't ring any bells when I was watching it. Like at first, I was like, I don't have any recollection of this episode. So yeah, I was confused a lot of the time. It's very campy. I don't think it's especially scary. I think I have to give it like maybe like a 2 or 3. But having said that, there's a really good chance that this episode gave me a very specific nightmare that I had when I was a kid that really stuck with me.
Was a werewolf chasing you up the stairs?
Well, I want to say, no, not that, but I want to say we were trick-or-treating or something, and we went to this specific house, and there was like a werewolf in the attic room over the front door. And you could hear it growling and shaking, and then it like got out. It was just so scary for some reason when I was like a little kid. And I remember having to go up to that werewolf's room and look around, and it looked like this bedroom.
So while you don't find it particularly scary, you actually had like a Tale of the Full Moon nightmare.
I think
like
so.
Bona fide.
I think so. Which I didn't connect that until rewatching it now. So I think that's where it came from. So yeah, maybe I should bump it up to like a 5 because not scary now, but
not scary now, but it did something
mark
to you at some point in your life. And we can't say that for every single episode.
So the only thing I remember about this episode is that bedroom, and that's it.
Which was scary.
Ramshackle.
As we disclaim all the time during our Scarometer segments, the point of Are You Afraid of the Dark wasn't necessarily always to be scary. And these ratings don't reflect our actual, like, 5-star, how good we think the episode was.
Right.
Those two things are not correlated for me really at all, because I think this was a great episode. I think this episode spoke to a lot of different film tropes and pop culture that I really love.
Yeah.
So it's not my overall feelings on the episode, but scare-wise, I gave it a 4.
Yeah.
For 2 very specific reasons. The transformation scene, because that was scary. Admittedly, just off the top, that's scary.
It was very found footage visuals right there.
And obviously, all of the pet death.
Pet Death is such a good band name.
Pet Death.
Oh my God. Pet Death.
Pet Detective? Nah, Pet Death. You're not real death. You're not good enough to be real death. You're just a pet death.
That's such a good band name.
And I say that tongue in cheek, like I said earlier in the episode. Pet deaths are very real and very painful.
Yes, they are. They're excruciating.
Which is why, again, this bugged me a little. But
it's true.
Overall, it honestly impressed me that they were able to achieve this level of camp in the performances of these kids who weren't, especially experienced actors at the time.
They had the beats right.
Yeah, it's like ham it up as much as you possibly can and then do a little bit more. And then you've got camp. Ellen David nailed it too. And I think she's a huge reason why all of this kind of made sense. The glue that held it together.
I think so.
This style of acting requires so much self-awareness that you seem unaware. Like you have to know where the line is to exceed it. So it looks like they're being really cheesy and cutting up on camera, and they are, but it's such an intentional choice, and that's what makes it funny.
Right.
Although we deal with full moons rather often, I think this is the only episode of this series that deals directly with werewolves. So that, combined with its very specific tone, make this such a unique episode in the run of Are You Afraid of the Dark as a whole. And I love that this episode is leading us into our episode 100 extravaganza.
Yes.
Which we shared with all of you last time, is that episode 100 and 101 will hold a conversation with Mr. DJ McHale himself.
Ooh, we got to hang out with that man. It was such a good time.
Such a good time. And yeah, this episode to me, if you're going to show somebody what is Are You Afraid of the Dark, although it's different than every other episode, it still fits so perfectly.
Right.
And I love that.
It's so nice. It's nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
And like you said, the cycles of nostalgia. Her nostalgia for the 60s, our nostalgia for the 90s. It's just a really nice place to live for however long it is, 18 minutes.
Man, what a nice, positive, understanding way to explain, oh, your uncle's gay, or my brother, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
When I was explained to that my uncle was gay, it was a very bitter, angry revelation of our family's dark secret, one of the dark secrets of my family. when I got old enough to be given this, normal amount of information that wasn't a big deal at all.
Right.
It was so heavily kept. Yeah. Man, I wish more people had that mentality of just like, oh, hey, why are you freaking out? This is fine.
There are just so many like configurations and ways that families can exist and people can love each other. And that is beautiful. Like that is okay and great because people are different. And the ways that we love each other will then also be different. And it's all just a big old kaleidoscope. I was reading a post earlier about how the universe has never lost matter. Like it's just a kaleidoscope, all just shifting differently. Every person born, every piece of art, everything is just a new form, a new reflection of something that has always been here and existed.
Right. Universe is gay. So.
Universe is gay as as it should be.
Well, that's how we feel about it.
And if you, dear Darkling, want to be a piece of the universe reflecting back at itself with us, you can find us on social media at That's Pretty Dark Podcast, at That's Pretty Dark on TikTok. You can also send us your thoughts and tell us everything you think about this episode and any other at That's Pretty Dark Podcast at gmail.com. If you really, really like us and you want us to know it, you can find us over on Patreon at patreon.com/TPD podcast with some extra bonus content and also just, supporting our work and what we do and why and how we do it.
That kaleidoscope of darkness.
And we haven't said it in a minute, but I'd like to remind you that you can also leave us a review or some stars on your podcast platform of choice, and that is always helping us get into the ears of more people who need to hear messages such as these.
That is all of us.
Is that everything?
I think that's everything. Go get your chains ready. Full moon's coming. Whether you like it or not, so get...
Lock me up. What is it? If this is torture, chain me to the wall. Oh, Oliver and Company.
So good. So good.
Thanks for being here. And until next time, in episode 100, we'll miss you. We'll see you soon.
See y'all next time. Gonna go be a dad. Bye. That's Pretty Dark Podcast is produced by Kaylin Andrews and me, Christian Baxter Mott.
With music by Jonathan Simmons and cover design by Halftone Horror.
You can support our show by supporting our sponsors or go to patreon.com/TPD podcast to unlock all the Pretty Dark bonus content we have in store.
Please share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood on our socials or at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com.
For all other information, visit our website, that'sprettydark.com.
Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
This is all really interesting. But the question is, what do you do if you got a werewolf living next door?
Move.